We know that hospitalizations have been rapidly rising when it comes to COVID, but one thing that isn't talked about quite enough is how hospitalizations for children with COVID are rising as well. The number of children hospitalized with COVID hit a record high of just over 1,900 on Saturday. Children currently make up about 2.4% of the nation's COVID-19 hospitalizations. Still obviously a small percentage, but a rising number. And that is with the US now having an average of about 129,000 new COVID cases per day. Jesus, and overall hospitalizations being at a 6-month high. By the way, one of the reasons we wanted to make sure that we focus on the fact that kids are not only getting COVID at higher rates, and getting hospitalized with COVID at higher rates, thanks in no small part to the fact that the Delta variant is so much stronger, but because much of what you hear about kids in COVID is the same as what it's been for a year. From people like Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves, who said COVID-19 in kids is the sniffles. Yeah, well, shortly after he said that, an 8th grader in his state died of COVID, and many others are in the hospital and could be lost as well. Doctors at major children's hospitals say nearly all of their patients are unvaccinated. They are either under age 12 and not yet eligible for the coronavirus shots, or teens who put off the vaccine, and many of them probably surrounded by adults in their lives that don't get vaccinated either. Finally, we wanted to let you know that, not surprisingly, Florida leads the country in child hospitalizations with 247 children admitted just last week, a rate of 35 new admissions per day. And as we talk about this, we can put up this little graph that shows some of the places where it's really rough. But yeah, Francesca, it is spreading faster. It's hitting people harder, including some breakthrough cases, and even in kids who the right swore would always be safe from this.
Yeah, I mean, we put in motion a plan to reopen schools when vaccinations were going strong, and it seemed like, all right, we're gonna do this. And the Delta variant was just a twinkle in our eye, right? And just a twinkle in Dr. Fauci's eye, except it wasn't, except we all knew it was definitely coming. And it was worse, and it had spread across Europe. Anyway, but see, once inertia takes over, it's difficult to, unwind that and rewind that. The real thing to me though is these are a lot of states that have incredibly low vaccination rates, right? They have low vaccination rates all around. These are states where parents are showing up at school board meetings and decrying mask mandates and saying, we need to save the children. Okay, how are you saving the children? It seems to me like wearing masks and taking COVID precautions and you yourself getting vaccinated is literally saving children. But no, that is not what save the children means. Totally right. I forgot what you were actually talking about. But and it's devastating, right? Like, and look, I don't think it's on the CDC to immediately, or the FDA to say, no, we need to immediately approve vaccinations for 12 and under. I'm glad that they're taking their time, but I think it absolutely is an indictment, of course, of anti-vax governors, anti-vax communities, and the lack of a plan B if and when we knew this virus could get worse. Look, I don't think students should be and kids should be at home anymore. I think that's terrible. However, what about some sort of outdoor setting for schools? What about allowing schools or giving schools the funding to be able to set something like that up where you can safely be distanced in person, but say outside, where we know that even though there's still a risk, is much less than when you're indoors. To say nothing of the fall and the winter and what is coming. And again, my brother is a public school teacher, and it is very, very scary, not just for him, but even he's vaccinated, but it really is about, kids themselves getting sick, potentially getting sick, and then also potentially getting their family sick or their grandparents sick. A lot of people do live with multi-generations in one home. So it's upsetting because we knew this would happen, and yet this feels like such a political move, of course, because COVID's been politicized. It is, we must reopen no matter what. We must do this. We were already on track to do this, so we can't take it back now, even if it doesn't make sense. Well, even if it's putting kids at risk.
it's explicitly political when like governors are saying local school districts can't mandate masks or vaccination. We're gonna ban you from requiring it. And yeah, you can't vaccinate the young kids yet. It isn't allowed. Let's just jump ahead and admit that if the CDC does come out with their 6-month study or whatever, and it shows that there aren't side effects or whatever, the right isn't going to accept that. Let's just bear that in mind.
No.
But at the very least, you could require masks. You could require the adults who are serving in those schools, teachers and support staff and stuff like that, to be vaccinated. They're not doing any of these things. And look, I know it's that time of the Monday episode, Francesca. This was discussed on John Oliver's program over the weekend. It's totally true.
God.
Like, it's not like I have a really bizarre, strong opposition to child masking or whatever. It's I don't do any of these things. You're not gonna mask. We're not getting vaccinated. We're not going to be socially distancing. We're not gonna be contact tracing. We're not gonna do literally anything, which makes any one of those individual excuses you use seem pretty hollow when your overall stance is we should not be protected in literally any way. And we will probably just end up changing the subject as more and more kids end up in hospitals and more kids end up dying as a result of it. That 8th grader isn't going to convince Tate Reeves any more than the 5-year-old that died of COVID in Marjorie Greene's district is gonna convince her to take it seriously either. But hopefully it'll convince some parents. And to finalize this section, the goal of all of this coverage is to keep you informed, but also hopefully to influence people to take it seriously. And for the first time in some time, more than 1 million people got vaccinated in one day. So there is at least some evidence that the recent uptick in either cases and or coverage are leading people to want to get vaccinated. The rate is still far too low considering how available the vaccine is. I walked past a Rite Aid today that was providing it, and yet a lot of people aren't still getting vaccinated, but the rate is going up. And so that is at least some good news.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.